Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you again for taking time. We wanted to share some of our thoughts around the value of managed travel, strategic drivers, and unlocking success in a rapidly evolving landscape. Cindy Fisher and I will walk you through the slides. So let's get right to it. Our agenda today is twofold. We want to talk about strategic drivers and the importance that they have in grounding your program. And then secondly, the emerging trends that we see that will be very impactful to us in the near term and in the long term. So when we talk about strategic drivers, we're talking about this. To simplify, to chat GBT this slide, it answers the question, why do we manage travel? And most organizations either have a very clear definition of that and they anchor those programs back to these drivers, or they don't. They sort of perfunctory do it. We think it's a best practice to understand what your strategic drivers are and then anchor to those. So on the far left-hand side, you see cost management. Most organizations, one of the reasons they manage travel is to manage costs. They're either looking at, a way to stay within policy, that's a cost constraint, or they're creating a good travel environment, maybe a little more friendly on the traveler experience. But one way or another, they want to understand that what the money they spend and how it affects the bottom line. Secondly, sustainability is a growing one. Might not be on your list, but it's on many people's list, and trying to do the right thing for ESG. Third might be regulatory compliance. If you're in pharma or you have a government contract, you likely have required reporting on what you do related to travel. So this is an opportunity to anchor regulatory compliance as a strategic driver. Fourth, most organizations do care about their travelers' experience. The war on talent, the fight for good people. Many new employees are asking about what is the travel policy. In fact, interestingly, Goldspring was just asked that with someone that's joining us, said, tell me about the travel policy. So they'll ask. And if you've got long trips and maybe they're in economy or it's an uncomfortable situation, that may be a deciding factor with a person of talent that may be choosing between some options. So generally speaking, organizations want the booking experience, the travel experience, all of those to be a pleasant experience within a cost constraint. Duty of care, making sure that we provide that for our contractors and employees, anyone that's under our responsibility for travel. Generally speaking, most organizations want to provide that. There has been some legislation in other countries that's been passed that says you have to do that. So in some countries it's a requirement, but most of the time it's just good business practice. And the last is process efficiency. You don't want to create a system where it has 18 hurdles, roadblocks, stoppages, connectivity to be able to book a simple round trip. So most often you want to build a system that's really efficient and user-friendly for the organization. So these are the 6 sort of strategic drivers that we most see. And what I'd like to do is task you with a poll. I'll put the poll question up here. Thank you, Melissa. If you would, go to your devices and please pick 2 of those strategic drivers that you believe are most valued by your C-suite. So which 2 would be at the top of your C-suite's list? And as is our custom with these webinars, we will feed this information back to you so that you'll be able to see what everyone said, and we'll be able to share that. So please pick 2 of the strategic drivers that you believe are most valued by your C-suite. You can grab that poll and move it around if it's blocking your vision of the 6. Cost management, sustainability, regulatory compliance, traveler satisfaction, duty of care, or process efficiency. And while you're finishing the poll, as we mentioned, these are the 6 most common we see at Goldspring. You'll have others, and many organizations replace replace 1 or 2 of these with other emphasis. Okay, cost management, a big winner. 86% said that's the top driver. And it looks like our second top driver is traveler satisfaction. Well, that's an interesting point. That is the seesaw, the teeter-totter. That's the balance, isn't it? And we often share this sort of short story. If you put me into the most expensive suite in all of New York City, and then the next day ask me how my travel experience was, it's going to be very good. It's going to be super high. If you told me that I have to stay in a youth hostel and share a double bed with a stranger, and then you ask me the next day how my experience was, it's going to be very poor. If I add the cost element to that, it's very expensive in the suite, very cheap in the hostel. So there is a balance between what we do for cost management and what we do for traveler experience. So that's interesting. Thank you for sharing those. Great stuff. Okay, we're going to move on. So let's talk about some emerging trends. And this is kind of a fun slide. The time it took to get to 100 million users, and these are some of the brand names that you do know. Netflix took 10 years to get to 100 million users. Gmail was 5 years. Twitter, or X, was 5 years. Facebook, 4.5. WhatsApp, 3.5. Instagram, 2.5. TikTok, 9 months. ChatGPT, 2 months. And my favorite, Pirate Bay, 1 day after Netflix canceled shared passwords and Gen Z discovered torrents. So that's my favorite one. The point is, technology and everything is changing so rapidly. This is kind of a good slide. Cindy and I thought we'd walk through each of these technologies over the next 18 days with you. Obviously, we can't, but it's just a good snapshot to show you the diverse landscape that travel tech and we're all emerging into. And it's a bit of a head scratcher, but it's really just a visual of what is happening. So here are the trends that we'd like to share with you that we think are impactful. Governance and how it drives success. What we're seeing with AI, of course. Integrated platforms. We're calling it the NDC experiment, but we'll build that out. Hotels with attribute-based buying. The idea of a truly single profile. What's happening with small meetings technology. How travel policies are changing to meet the new trends. What sustainability role plays. And then lastly, blockchain and how we'll go there. So let's start with governance. So governance has a number of challenges. And when we say governance, we're defining this as sort of how you get things done inside your organization. And without the right governance support, it's very difficult. And we've all been in projects that were going along really well. And then somewhere out of the blue, you got a last minute note from a C-suite that said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to go left instead of going right. So some of the challenges we have is firstly gaining their interest in our project or our initiative and making sure that we give them the right business case, the right explanation, and the right why. And again, the strategic drivers anchoring that back is a success point, saying this is the kind of company we are, this is why we manage travel, and here's how that connects to what we're trying to accomplish. Second point, it's got to be fully inclusive of not only what you're trying to accomplish, but all the C-suite or the stakeholders that you need to engage. So if it's going to have an implication in the tax side of the business, you need to have someone from the tax group involved. If it's going to have an assignment to accounting, you need to have those people involved. Generally, HR will be involved, things like that. And then the last is the right levels. It's very difficult to get C-suite attention. We all get that, but you have to have the right level that can speak to the project and be able to champion you as you go through. So what are some of the applications here? Getting governance, you can use something called a RACI. It's simply a responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed. That's what that stands for. But it's a matrix of how all of the stakeholders fit into the project. And defining that up front can help you overcome some of those challenges. Because if you don't have someone that can approve on your RACI, then you're probably missing an important person. So there are many that do that. They're support lead models, but RACI is one that seems to be very popular. We have to manage the project with the entire group, the entire governance group that you're going to. Now, they're going to want communication at different points and different levels. Some will want to be engaged, on every call and every email. Others will say, no, I need milestone check-ins. And that's great. But the point is to find the right communication strategy to fit how you've defined the RACI or the project. And by scheduling those milestones, you can show progress. You can also bring in those people that are important but don't have as much time, and you can get them connected to the project. So when Goldspring is asked, and we do get asked this fairly often, what doesn't work? What can go wrong with a project? It's governance. And so it's really the question of who or what could derail you. What would stop this from being a success, and then how can we integrate those people or those groups into our governance committee? So that's a little about governance. Let's talk a little bit about AI. AI has some challenges. You may know this, and perhaps you do or you don't, but for any AI to understand things, it has to be taught. So we'll take pictures as an example. And so if you show a picture of an elbow, then you have to explain, AI, this is an elbow. So that way, when it sees similar pictures, it can understand that. However, AI may look at a bent arm and you show it a picture of a bent leg, and it may say, yes, I've been trained, that's an elbow. No, that's a leg. So there are an estimate of 10 million people doing this labeling and tokenization embedded in AI, trying to help AI understand and make better decisions. And something like this, it doesn't sound very important until you start layering AI into surgical or medical. And knowing the difference between an elbow and a knee is an important distinction if you get to that kind of a place. So one of the challenges is we're still teaching it how to read, how to understand. The second challenge is a lack of transparency. All the leading advocates of AI say the same thing. We don't know how it gets to some of the decisions it gets to. So anytime you're talking with someone about an issue and you want to understand why do you feel that way, there's an explanation to it. AI makes decisions, makes inferences without us understanding exactly how it works. And so that lack of transparency is a little fearful. You know, if I don't understand the logic or the process to get to the decision, I'm a little worried about what decision might come out. And we see that with hallucinations in AI and some other things. And the hallucination I'm talking about, I did this on one of the AI models. I said, who was the star of the Indiana Jones movie franchise? And it said Harrison Ford. And I said, no, I don't think it was. And it came back and said, yes, it was. And I said, no, I really think it wasn't. And it said, you're right. It was not Harrison Ford. It was Tom Selleck. And so just by pushing back, I got an incorrect answer. Now, the reason that's slightly correct for those movie buffs, Tom Selleck was offered that role and didn't take it. And that's how Harrison Ford got the job. But it's still not correct. So that's what we mean about hallucinations. So what are some of our applications? Well, at the moment, we see it more deployed in expense reporting than any other area. Basically, looking over expense reports for not just rules violation, but second and third level connections. So as an example, you might have a rental car and you might also have a shared ride on the same expense report. An auditor might not pick that up, but if AI is trained to, hey, look for all ground transportation and see if there's duplicate or overlap. Same kind of thing. You take someone out for a meal and you write who you took out. So let's say there were 5 people at that meal. AI can also look at the other 5 persons' expense reports and see, is that name appearing twice? So did 2 people submit the same bill, or maybe they were out of town at another location when it said they were at that dinner. So AI can do that very quickly, and that's some of the applications we see inside of expense reporting. Airports is a very exciting application of AI, being able to predict traffic flows, airline changes, gate changes, equipment breakdowns, and redirecting traffic, security and customs. So being able to predict correctly on many elements that are unconnected today to security and customs. Everyone's filing into a certain gate or terminal, but they've just moved all of that to another one. So having AI be able to prompt and move traffic. Second thing is, think about the first-time traveler. Can be a very harrowing experience. So having AI being able to guide you through the airport in a virtual situation could make the travel experience much better for that nervous or first-time traveler. And meetings is just a fantastic approach. You can now see setups on meeting rooms. I like it theater style, so AI can present it theater style. I'd like to see it in a different style, maybe in a round table, and then different seating arrangements, different stage setups, all of that. And so meeting planners can do that kind of work without having to physically be in the space and being able to see how they can apply their own meeting to the needs and then adjust the pricing accordingly, right? And then, of course, TMC chat. That's one we see, really, really heavily used. The challenge here is, where do you drop the machine and pick up a human? And we'll just make the example to you about the phone tree. We've all been stuck in a phone tree. I'm sorry, Will, I didn't get that. Could you repeat that? Oh, you said 2. I'll transfer you. No, I didn't say 2. I said 1. there's a point in there, it's very helpful, but it quickly turns to being an irritant or a really bad experience. So the travel management community is deploying AI for simple and low value transactions, but where do you flip it over to a human? And right now, most of the TMCs have decided to make that a quick flip, because you don't want a bad experience. You don't even want to get close to the bad experience. But as it gets smarter and as it gets more personal, it'll climb up the chain till we'll be able to use it completely. And the last here might be the death of the OBT, and I'll say this, the death of search via the OBT. So just imagine, and this AI does exist, that AI can parse your emails, your texts, your chats, and it looks at your calendar. And from all of that, it sees, hey, Will is going to be going on a trip in 2 weeks, and this looks like the city he's going to go to. This looks like the convention he'll attend, and this looks like when that ends, and he'll need to get back. So it can propose an itinerary to me based on the company preferences, and then, of course, my personal preferences. Maybe it knows during the weekdays I do red eyes because I want to maximize my time with my family. Whereas if I have to travel on the weekend, I don't. I'd rather do something different. Or I never want to be on the second to last flight, because if the flight cancels, I'll be stuck. So I always I never want to be on the last flight, always the second to last if we go late. So just imagine that parsing, and that all happens. And so in the background, it's all working, and you just get a pop-up. Hey, it appears you're going on a trip. Here's a suggested itinerary. And the more you say that is right and that fits for me, the more accurate it will get. So we could definitely see, and we will see that relatively promptly, I think. But let's just take a second and talk about some of the fun AIs that you may know about. The one on the left is called Deep Beat. And so if you are an aspiring rapper and you just haven't been able to pull it together, you're going to want to go to Deep Beat, and it will write a rap song for you with lyrics. That's kind of fun. If you've seen the middle one, the grandmom animate your family photos, if you've seen old photos, and Deep Nostalgia animates those. So you can see grandpa and grandma looking around and, kind of being active in an old photo. That's a fun one. Bored Humans is an insult battle. So if you decide you need to argue with AI and see who can win, go to boredhumans.com and you can argue and be insulted by AI. On Boom is a trivia maker. So let's say you have you're highly interested in Pokemon trivia. Great, it'll build a trivia contest for you, personalized. AI Dungeon is creating your own story. So if you did want to write a story, but you just have some plot points, AI Dungeon can help you. And then one of our favorites over on the right side is the Freddie meter. This is how you sing into the microphone, and it will tell you how much you sound like Freddie Mercury. And what's fun about this is Queen actually built this, and they use this they use the proceeds from this to fund AIDS charity that Queen founded on behalf of Freddie Mercury. So that's kind of a fun one if you're an aspiring singer. All right, we'll go back to work. Let's talk about the growth of integrated platforms. So what we mean here is typically, if you look at the challenges of I'm going to search for a trip, and then I'm going to book a trip, and then I'm going to pay for a trip, and then I'm going to expense that trip. Those have historically been disconnected silos, but Concur stepping into the purchase of Outtask brought the booking and the expense together. Others had done it, but that was the large scale adopter. And now you're seeing these integrated platforms saying we can do all of that. We can we have a booking tool, we're an agency, we can get that ticketed, we have a card, we can pay for that, and we have an expense tool. So those integrated platforms are really growing. And I think the last time I looked, we found about 12 or 13 of those that are active in the business travel community in the market. So a couple of challenges. What market will that serve? Your large, multinational, mature, complex program probably won't work because many of these tools are in only a few markets. They're not wholly distributed around the world. So often that's a challenge, is finding the maturity to fit a complex program. The second thing would be, can they be good at all components? Will it be the best booking tool that you can deploy? Is it the best agency? Is it the best payment vehicle? Is it the best expense tool? Maybe. But often they're not the best, and so there may be better alternatives that are better in maybe 2 or 3 of those and not as good in one, but because it's a holistic approach, you might do that. The other component here is when we think about payment as an example, many times organizations' treasury departments have deep banking relationships, and they will want to bank with those lenders that work with them. So often there's a secondary consideration around payment, and that may extend into expense. The last point about the challenges is the enterprise resource planning systems, the ERPs. They're very sticky, and they're sticky because they cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and large organizations spend a lot of money putting those in, integrating those, connecting those, and many of those offer one or four of those components. And so when those components are offered from an ERP, it's pretty difficult to say, let's remove a $100 million investment and put in a startup. So that can be a little bit of a challenge in the integrated platforms. But they are growing, and they seem to be incredibly attractive to the smaller market. And that makes some sense. If you're a US only organization and you need to get all of this, it can be very attractive that you have that. It's a simple approach, right? You have one supplier, it's all connected and integrated. So implementation is a snap, right? It's not hard. And then the last point is you're done, right? You're just done. So that's a pretty exciting thing for those programs that it does fit with. Let's move on to the NDC experiment. Let's just talk about this a little bit. I would imagine all of you are eye rolling at the moment because NDC is something that's been going on for a long, long time. And, we saw starts and stops and fits and spurts, and we saw lots of different things happen in the marketplace. But what it is will stay, right? This is the new way of distribution. This is the new way that organizations will need to buy from carriers. And ultimately, this might spread to other parts of our industry. But the challenge is, where is the best fare? Historically, why you manage travel is cost containment. You guys rated that. 86% of you said it's the top driver. So how can you be sure you get the best fare? It's a little bit like asking a stock, when is the best time to buy this stock? Well, it changes by the minute, doesn't it? Because the market demand, supply and demand, pricing changes, competitiveness, things like that. So finding the fare is still something travel buyers are tasked with, but it's getting a little more complicated without integrated technology that will bring it back and put it in the shopping channel that you need to see it in. So that's certainly one of our challenges we have there. The second is, if I'm going to build this whole new way to shop, I probably am going to have to build some integration technology, which is a cost element. So very likely, I'm going to have to pay extra to now bring this back in. What was historically sort of in one system, now it's in two systems, it's in 80 systems. I need to find a way to go get that, bring it back, put it in the right channel so that the travelers and arrangers can see it in a competitive way, make good policy decisions, and go. So that can be an additional layer of cost that we'll all do. And the other concept is moving fares in and out very frequently. This is the continuous pricing that we talk about mostly with United Airlines, but we talk about fares can appear, they can disappear. They're not stuck with the fare ladder anymore. So, those buckets would have ranges of fares, and now you can make the range or the fare anything you want. So it could be just 1 penny less, which would then promote that to the top of the search. Right? If all the fares are $400 and this one's $399.99, that will appear in the shopping channel first. So that can be an advantage and a challenge at the same time. A couple of the applications. We think buyers will ultimately end up paying for this. Suppliers are saving a lot in the segment fees, saving a lot in commission fees, and also saving a lot and creating a way to enhance their offerings based on loyalty. So we're seeing that buyers will have to pay for that reintegration, and the TMCs are doing a lot of that work. The GDSs have done that work, but ultimately, as things continue to evolve, buyers will be stuck with a different. And that happened a while ago, right? It was a surcharge for non-GDS fares and so on. Airlines will likely tier discounts. Now we'll see how this plays out. The carriers have done a couple things. We talk about the carrot and the stick here. With the stick, you go back to what happened in Europe, where there was a €16 per segment additional fee if you didn't buy it through the NDC channel. So that was a €16, €32 on a round trip. And so that's kind of the stick, right? You're not doing what I want you to do, so I'm going to make you pay extra. The carrot was applied by some other carriers who said, if you'll buy it, I'll do something better for you. And when it first got going, those were really large incentives. We even heard of one particular TMC being paid up to €100 on NDC tickets that were over a certain value as a direct commission, just to try to build NDC traffic. So we see that might happen, the carrot and the stick, but a very likely scenario would be airlines saying, if you go through this channel, then the discount is 20%. If you go through another channel, the discount's 15%. So finding a way to sort of make the buyers pay by giving them an incentive to move. And blockchain will clearly disrupt all of this. As we'll talk about in blockchain, the concept of a distributed ledger where everyone can see everything will change how NDC gets distributed and paid. We saw the Business Travel News award the Travel Managers of the Year for the work that they did with United Airlines and blockchain and payment. And so that entire system and that award of Travel Managers of the Year was predicated on the concept of a distributed ledger and being able to have complete access, being able to go directly into the carrier's inventory and then pay in the same way. And there is a possibility that airlines will choose their favorite distributors, TMCs and the like. And if they do, they may have more favorable pricing inside of those models. So no longer does a buyer say, I just want to go look at a TMC. The buyer might say, hey, we're heavily with Delta and we're heavily with this other carrier. So that becomes an important part of the equation as you discuss TMCs and what GDSs and what booking tool applications there are. Let's talk just a
Hey, Will, somebody just asked for you to explain what is a blockchain.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. I wasn't looking at that. If you'll bear with me, we've got a whole slide on it, and so we'll go through it on the slide if that's okay. Let's go on to hotel adopting attribute-based buying. So some of the challenges here, we mentioned the concept of a loyalty program. So hoteliers permitting access with reward numbers and so on. So the concept is the call and response. So right now, I go on to any hotel website and I can go in anonymously, right? I go in and I give me a rate, but I can also go in under my sign-on, which then tells the hotel what status level I have, how frequently I stay with them, so on. Now imagine they also have all of that from competitive market sources, so they see how many hotel nights I might have spent in a year, or they see that I haven't stayed with them very much this year, but I did quite a bit last year. Maybe AI finds out that's because Will is just not staying at this particular property or this particular chain anymore. So hotels, for us to be able to do this in the managed travel space, will have to help us understand how they're offering based on who I am rather than just a blind search. So they'll have to permit access for this to become part of the managed travel scheme, right? It'll become part of the personal travel scheme, but the managed travel scheme is going to have hoteliers allowing loyalty numbers, status, and then those offers to be filtered through the corporate space. And the challenge will be keeping the company's interests above the personal interests. So we all know that any airline or hotel, and there are some famous, let's talk about some of the famous chains. There are some very large hotel chains that will very quickly tell you our point program is more controls your traveler than your policy ever will. They like our points, they like our properties, they like our brand. So you will lose if you want to battle us on policy, and buyers know that happens quite a bit, right? We often laugh if the travelers could use the creativity they come up with to violate policy to solve or cure cancer, we'd have it done tomorrow with the level of effort they put into justifying policy exceptions. But in this particular case, if I'm a known, you have my reward number, so you're giving me an offer based on will as opposed to my company Gold Spring, then I'm going to have a challenge. And clearly that will continue to be a challenge as we go along this way. Some of the applications here, just build them all. Room types, amenities, sustainability scores, all of that could be a great way for a hotel to provide attribute-based buying. So if I want to look for a more sustainable property and I understand that offer can come to me via this idea of attribute-based, then that's a great thing. I really can make a great decision. It also could be, there's a particular room type. Maybe it's a accessibility type of an issue. That could be great. If we get more personalization, we will get higher employee satisfaction. And then the other part of that is the loyalty, right? The more you get loyal to a property, the more you're willing to overpay because you have a great chance at a concierge level or an upgraded room or something else. So we have to align our policies to reduce off-channel bookings. Sorry about that. Got a typo there. With that, Cindy, will you walk us through the truly single profile?
I will. Thank you. Well, it's really interesting. Will just set me up with the hotel attribute buying, because if you think about brand loyalty and targeting travelers, it's done on individual profiles through suppliers. So if you think about your organization today, everyone faces a critical challenge, which is fragmented customer data or traveler data spread across different systems, platforms, and suppliers. Really, not unlike many other stories that we hear in the industry over and over again. What a truly single profile does is it addresses this challenge by bringing together all traveler information into one unified profile. So if you think about unequal priorities, most suppliers obviously want to own the traveler data for brand loyalty. And in many cases, the suppliers do not want to relinquish the profile data as they view this as their competitive advantage. They want to target these travelers that Will just mentioned because they want you to pay the higher price for that upgrade and get upgraded to concierge level or whatever that is when it comes to hotels. And if you think about the various suppliers out there today, you've got TMCs and you've got airlines, hotels, car rental, and then there's the other traveler data. Think about OpenTable. Think about Facebook. When the traveler gives permission, the technology for a truly single profile will integrate from the interests of the traveler and use AI and machine learning to continually update the traveler preferences. So there's a lot of complexity that comes with this and a lot of integration. So if you think about the applications that apply to the truly single profile, it's always current. The unified view allows for more personalized and relevant experiences for the traveler, and it enables smarter decision making as data-driven insights come from a single source of truth, making it easier to identify trends, preferences, and emerging needs. And you've got it linked back to the corporation. So you've got everything in one specific place. And with a truly single profile, both traveler and supplier efficiency do improve. Travelers benefit from a personalized experience where every interaction from booking to post-trip to feedback all the way through to their tailored preferences and needs. And they don't have to re-enter the information. Think about how many times as a traveler you have to enter information, whether it's with your hotel, loyalty programs, your airline loyalty programs, etc. With a truly single profile, you enter it once, it's in one place, and then it integrates into all of those suppliers. And then consider as truly single profile progresses with the use of AI and machine learning. Think about the trip. Think about the number of times we've all gone to a destination. I know it's happened to me. And all of a sudden we find out, oh my gosh, I've got a really good friend that's in the same city and I would like to have dinner with that person. Well, without a truly single unified profile, maybe pulling information, whether it's your Facebook page or another source, of course, you have to give permission. It literally can help make your experience more desirable. It's great when you come back from a trip after doing, business day and night, and you can honestly look back and say, gosh, I had a great dinner with my friend. So that can really make a difference for the user experience. With the AI machine learning and the single profile, it will constantly update real time. It's very dynamic, and it will update by your trip preferences and then make recommendations to ensure that you are having that desirable experience. So if we look at the unified single profile technology, it will enable current profiles where decisions, again, are highly dynamic and automated with data synchronization, and will lead to a better traveler experience across all suppliers. And it's going to make your traveler feel valued and give them a higher level of satisfaction and lead back to one of those managed strategic drivers that Will had mentioned earlier, and then incorporate your company's policies within that. So it's an up and coming technology. There's a lot of entities out there that are pursuing this. I think we counted, what, Will, 8 different ones on the truly single profile. So I think more to come on this trend, but we wanted to highlight it for you. All right, with that, let's move on to advancements in small meeting technology. And you probably wonder, why did Gold Spring pick this as a trend? Well, it is because we believe that it is an emerging trend, because small meetings, simple meetings, whatever you want to call them, have increased dramatically over the last few years, with high levels of growth. If we look back, and I think Will's calling it now the Great Pause. If you look back before the Great Pause, companies were at maybe 40%. What we're seeing today is companies are at about 60% and growing, and there's some at 70 and 80% of small and simple meetings growth. And one of the challenges with small and simple meetings is they're typically siloed within a corporation, and there's many different stakeholders that are booking those meetings. You have from executive admins into marketing assistants, into trainers. It is across the spectrum, and a lot of companies just don't have control. When we do look at small and simple meetings, typically, by the way, we look at fewer than 50 attendees with not a lot of complexity within that meeting, but we see averages of about 5 to 25. And I think we all know what's driving it. We all are working more virtual than we ever did before, and companies have a need to connect the teams. People have the need to reconnect. I've talked to many people on the phone just in the last month, where they started with the company, they've been there for 6 months, and they're thrilled to be going to the West Coast to meet with their company headquarters, their boss, for the very first time, by the way, live, and the team. So we're seeing more and more growth because there is that need to connect, to meet, and also to train. Train on new products and services. Discuss strategies, regarding sales growth. So this is what we're seeing that are really driving the growth in small meetings and the need for technology. So kind of one of the first steps, I'm going to back up here, is the challenge is we need to identify the various stakeholders to initiate the small meeting strategy. We need to develop a process, policies, and procedures that go with it. And once we identify those stakeholders, get the policies, the procedures in place, then it's really critical to enable those procedures and policies with technology. And small meetings technology absolutely can do that for you. And it really is a good initial step to begin collecting the data that goes along with the small meetings, and really to ensure you're managing the program. If you think about meeting tools, small meeting tools, they really deliver many benefits, from data visibility to supplier insights and rationalization to your venue sourcing. And even they can help support the management of your internal conference facilities and the booking of those facilities. These tools will support your stakeholders in the budgeting process through to registering the attendees for the meeting, and also your sourcing, along with negotiations, contracting, and at the end of the meeting, what typically individuals do not like to do is to pull together all the different elements of the meeting and reconcile that meeting. So it will help facilitate that process for you. And over time, these tools have absolutely grown, and they've included a lot more capabilities, such as sustainability for meetings, which is an fairly easy area compared to other aspects of the travel industry to really drive those initiatives. They've also come down in price. The market has become so competitive that they're not as expensive as they used to be several years back. So, regarding, additional applications for these tools, you've got not just the supplier management piece, but it enables the collaboration across the entity or the company, regardless of physical location, and it enhances engagement of the meeting itself through various communication vehicles, whether it's surveys, it's agendas, it's email communications about the meeting, getting individuals excited that they're going to be attending. And with the collection of the meeting data, you're going to mitigate risk and you're going to improve your duty of care. So if you think about small meeting technology, as I mentioned, it's advancing rapidly, offering more personalized, flexible, and effective solutions for businesses of all sizes. And as meeting programs evolve, so too must their meeting technology. So we encourage all of you to, if you don't have a meeting technology, and I mean small meeting technology deployed, take a look at the market, review the various tools that are out there. They've really made strides over the last several years, and they will help enhance the value of your small meetings program. Just like to take a moment and just kind of do a quick poll on all of you on how many of you have deployed small or simple meetings technology in your organizations, and it's a simple yes or no. So very interesting. The majority of you have not deployed a small meeting technology. It's about 82%, and then the remaining have deployed a small meeting technology. So as we mentioned, take a look, do your research, and it really can add value to your organization.
Cindy shared with me a meetings technology that sounds interesting, but also a little scary, and that is facial recognition and making judgments about how engaged an audience is in a meeting. So having cameras scan everyone's faces and looking for signs of engagement. And I was just thinking that through. If we had a live X feed here, and you could give us instant reactions, how difficult that might be to work through a presentation when you have a running commentary on, oh, I didn't like that. Oh, that was interesting. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I'm multitasking. I'm not paying attention. Now that could be. But it also has the advantage of looking back over meetings and seeing where attendees were engaged most deeply and most actively.
Yeah, it's really a great piece of technology. And, as part of small meeting technology, it's real interesting. A lot of companies now, of course, they've gone to a virtual platform technology to also support the smaller virtual meetings or meetings like what we're having today, whether it's, with Zoom or Teams, etc. They have deployed this technology and they're getting more sophisticated. So it's really across the spectrum, whether it's virtual or in person.
Thank you, Cindy. Let's talk about evolving travel policies. As the world changed from going back to the first time we really took advantage of duty of care, 9/11, and then going on to geographic or volcanoes and ash clouds and those types of things, to even the tragedy with the CEO of United Healthcare, policies are changing. And all of those kind of things impact what we're doing. So some of the challenges with policies, it's everyone's least favorite topic, right? I remember hearing a speaker say one time, how many of you have settled in with a nice cup of coffee and an 80-page travel policy for just a joyous hour and a half of reading? No one does that. So one of the challenges is that policy is a necessary evil, but we have to find a way to keep it current. You take, I'll give you just a quick example of staying current. We did a survey for a customer, and one of the questions was around what would you like to see changed? And one of the survey respondents said, I'm happy to support cost containment by staying at remote parking, not on airport parking. But when I arrive late, I don't feel like it's as safe as it would be for airport parking. So that organization changed that policy the next day that survey comment came in, and said that's a very, very, taking care of our people. We can amend the policy and say, if you're traveling early or late, you can do airport parking. If you don't, you should, if you're during the day, it should be remote. We talked about the challenge of staying current and then competing for talent. So policies have to have some bearing of a decent travel experience to engage those high leaders or the high productive employees that are really going to contribute to the organization. Some of the applications, we're saying linked to the strategic driver. So what we mean is, let's just say that one of your strategic drivers is sustainability. Well, maybe that means in the booking path, you permit higher cost hotels that are more sustainable. They have higher sustainable scores, their LEED or their other certifications. So that might be a way to connect a strategic driver right to the policy. Another, I mentioned the example of the remote parking, but another could be the lowest carbon footprint of a flight, maybe within a threshold, maybe $50 or something. You could allow travelers to choose that, and that would support your sustainability initiative. So those are some ways that we can anchor policies back, making sure that we have a return on investment for investments. And what we mean is some of the travelers have a higher impact on the overall organization's ability to grow and be profitable. And so perhaps when there are those types of trips where it's going to be a big deal or there's some really significant change to a customer base or improving or handling service issues, those maybe you'd allow a dynamic policy to say, this is such an important trip, we want you to be refreshed, so we are going to pay for business class or first class, even though it's out of policy because of the type of travel you're making. And then that last piece, making policies dynamic. Imagine AI layering in on travel, and they say, wow, Will is on his 150th night out of town this year, and that is a lot more than he did any other years. We want to upgrade his policy and make it more comfortable for the rest of his year. Or a traveler stress index. Will, you are really close to the red line. You've been taking back-to-back trips. You're doing lots of red eyes. All of that is creating a stress index for you, and we don't want that. So we want you to scale that back and really try to find some white space in there. So policies could connect in that particular way and grow. A couple of things about sustainability. One of the challenges is that we have different measurements, we have different approaches, and we have different ways to sort of offset that. Some buy carbon offsets, some make organizations do a contribution at a larger level. But because of those different measures, approaches, and the way we sort of manage sustainability, you have a lot of different information. And one of those that we talk about quite a bit is when an airplane the equipment changes because the airplane has a mechanical issue. Well, you've booked that under the assumption it was that piece of equipment. Now it's a different piece of equipment. So it's not going to update your booking, the choice you made on carbon. So things like that mean we have a lot of moving parts. A couple of applications here. Smileage is the research study we did a couple of years ago. And the study was focused on we had 33 levers or attributes, and we asked the traveling community. We got 61,000 responses to this survey, so it was widespread through a number of different organizations. But we asked the travelers, if you could adjust something to make your travel experience better, what would that be? And we gave them 33 things they could consider. And the reason we put Smileage on the sustainability is that was one of the most desired changes to existing travel organizations and policies. I want to be enabled to make better sustainability choices, but my organization is a low fare, so because of that, I have to take the low fare. So we were quite surprised to see the traveling community being so eager to support sustainability in this particular way. LLCF is lowest logical carbon footprint. So that may be a choice. You're looking for LLCF choices instead of looking for the price choice. And then contribution choices. Some of our clients are paying at a company level. So one of them just recently paid for $1 million of sustainable aviation fuel. And they told the travelers that's how we're working on sustainability at a corporate level. Others put it at the point of sale, the POS level. So again, in the booking path, this is a cheaper, more sustainable option. So you're permitted to choose it because it's within the threshold. So a couple of different ways that people are embracing sustainability. And our last trend is blockchain. So let's define blockchain, and thank you for your question earlier. Blockchain is the simplest definition. It's a distributed ledger, and it has a number of points, but one of them is ledger entries are immutable, meaning they cannot change. So imagine you and I shared a document, and that document, if you make a change on it, it's there permanently, and I will be able to see it because we share that together. If I make a change, it will be permanently displayed. If I delete something, it will be a permanent record that it's deleted. So it's a ledger that's distributed a number of different organizations, but it's one instance of the truth. I heard a hotelier say one time, blockchain will kill the lying in the travel industry. And what they were sharing is, when an employee gets walked from a hotel, then you have to say, well, did the agent get the reservation correct or the booking tool get it correct? Okay, did it go correctly to the third party, switching system? Did that then go to the property management system in the hotel? And did it ultimately make it up into the traveler's reservation? So in the past, with all of those being different systems, everyone can say, yes, I got that. If all of that system was in a distributed ledger, then there would be no question of where it broke down because it's there, a permanent record. So a couple of the challenges are any organization that has a fortress silo of information and is making money off of that fortress information, then they're not going to want to change. Because by allowing everyone into that fortress of information, you're now decimating the idea that I can reap money from that. And, an example might be Goldspring. When organizations hire Goldspring, one of the reasons they hire us is because we have a lot of information about the marketplace that we will use for their benefit. If Goldspring put that open to the entire world, then we wouldn't be hired for those types of investments. So that's an example of information. You think about airlines and hotels, and we talked about the loyalty programs and being able to display a price after I know who you are. Once that becomes open to the public, it's more difficult to monetize that. And that's why opacity, or being able to block that from the wider view, is monetized. And then the other challenge is who services the booking, right? Who owns the booking if it goes through this distributed ledger? Is it the booking tool? Is it the TMC? Is it the property? Who services that booking when we have disruptions? Some of the applications are disintermediating fees. I saw a presentation from an airline about 20 years ago. And on the slide, they said our number one goal is distribution costs. We want to eliminate or get those minimal. And second is credit card fees. Those are our two targets. And that was 20 years ago. Well, you just saw in the trades a provider saying we're going to charge you now for card fees if you buy in this particular way. So maybe 20 years ago it was talked about, but we're seeing it. In fact, it was this week that came out. So you might see distribution fees. If blockchain gets distributed, then maybe the distribution fees go down. You don't have the GDS fees or segment fees quite at the same level. And also credit card fees, as we just mentioned. But you could also have an improved experience, right? You can get buy a bundle of products. What we used to get with an airline ticket, right? It was food, it was seating, it was baggage, all of those things, and now they've been all segregated to be sold independently, and you can bundle those up. So blockchain creating a bundled experience that could really fit what you need. So as an example, I know I'm going to be running straight from this meeting. I'll go ahead and pre-order my meal. I'm going to need Wi-Fi because I have to write this report when we're there. So that could be a better experience for you to have it bundled. And then again, with the with the example I mentioned about Business Travel News, awarding the travel managers of the year, they didn't have expense reports. So if the airline ticket was bought through the blockchain using the blockchain technology, then it was approved. It went directly to be paid by the organization rather than an employee filling that out on an expense report. And those travel managers shared that was one of the real wins, is people loved not having to chase down an expense report from that. So let's wrap our emerging trends up this way. Those are a lot of challenges, and they can be a little scary. We see a lot of change. It's rapidly evolving. We had that fun slide about time to 100 million users, but we see the pace of change. It's very rapid. So that can create kind of a difficult situation. So we thought it might be fun to look back to when there was another difficult situation, and it was the question of why children can't read. And this was posed in 1954 by a Pulitzer Prize winning author named John Hersey. And he asked via a magazine article, why can't they read? And Life magazine came back and said, well, there are 4 reasons. Children's books weren't interesting. Children need to want to read rather than being told. That competes with a lot of other interests, and it must be more interesting and entertaining than some of the competition. And so one of the editors of Life magazine put a challenge out to an author and said, could you write something that a first grader would not be able to put down? And could you use 300 or less accepted words? So that challenge was thrown out. Well, if you know the story, you know the story. If not, one author agreed and gave one condition, which was, if I find 2 words that rhyme and make sense to me, then that will be the title. Well, the book was The Cat in the Hat. Only 236 unique words, called the biggest event in children's reading for centuries. John Hersey, who asked the question, said it was a masterpiece and a gift to the art of reading. And Dr. Seuss said it's the book I'm proudest of because it proved to a number of millions of kids that reading is not a disagreeable task. So how do we tie that together? 2 lessons here. Intelligence will follow interest, and constraints can boost creativity. So it's been said, I can be very dumb about things I don't care about. I can be extremely smart about the things I care about. And this is why the simple solution was to make the book more interesting. So how does constraints boost creativity? Dr. Seuss used only the 236 unique words. Following this book's success, Dr. Seuss's publisher bet him $50 he couldn't write another book using 50 unique words, and I know you already know the answer. Green Eggs and Ham was delivered in 1960 and went on to sell more than 8 million copies. So that constraint boosted Dr. Seuss, but Jack White, who's the lead singer and guitarist of White Stripes and his own things, he said, constraints can make you creative. Telling yourself you have all the time in the world, all the money in the world, all the colors in the palette, and you can do anything you want, that just kills creativity. So with that, we thank you so much for joining us for the webinar. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season and all the best to you and yours.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.